I am a budget phone addict.
Hello.
I've had a long line of amazing budget phones running all the way back to an original developer's G1 I was given when I worked at Google. That's why, when my spectacular Mi Max 2 finally gave up, after I dropped it down the stairs at the Lowry in Manchester shooting for Britain's Got Talent, I decided to find what I thought was the best phone on the market for me. Having a good phone is one of the most important tools needed to navigate both life and work, so it's always a very important decision. Here's my thinking. Part 1. Phones die fast. Phone batteries die faster. No matter what you try and do, they all have a similarly short lifespan in the real world. If the battery doesn't die, then the hardware or software will soon enough, and that's if you don't drop your phone first, which you invariably will. Even well maintained, most phones rarely last a great deal longer than 2 years without becoming slow and painful to use and needing to be charged non-stop. Part 2. Do you need the absolute best of everything? That perfect high-resolution screen that's barely noticeably better than 1/3 its price, so you can watch already compressed video being compressed again by YouTube. A gaming speed processor so you can browse Amazon? The wide-angle lens that you never actually use. Being at the very forefront of tech could account for a huge part of the price of the phone. Part 4. Flagship phones are roughly £1,000 now, yet budget phones are a quarter or a fifth of that. If they last you 2 years each, you would have to keep a flagship phone for a decade for the same amount. However, each successive budget phone would get increasingly better, making the flagship look outdated and antiquated after a decade. Part 5. If you get an expensive phone and pay insurance on it, why not just buy a cheaper phone and replace it if you lose or break it? So what do I want? Battery. There is nothing more important in a phone than battery. I use my phone for everything in my life, especially for work. From needing GPS at 4 AM on the way home from a DJ set down the back roads of Glastonbury, using my phone as a second 4K camera to record an interview, watching films through the night in an airport when your flights are delayed on the way back from DJing for Khalees on a beach in Norway, I need my phone never to run out. Ever. Chip. By that I mean the right chip. Lots of people don't think about it this way, but often a slower chip actually means longer battery life, yet you'll barely perceive the speed difference when using the phone. So the slower chip you get, the longer your phone will last. Ultimately, I want the phone to be fast, lightning speed preferably, but not at the expense of the battery. Screen. I want a huge screen, please. Massive if possible. I use my phone for everything. Filling out invoices, signing off edits, taking director and producer feedback notes. If I'm in a hotel, I watch films on my phone. At home, I'm continually watching YouTube videos or tutorials on it. I read books on it and even contracts. I need it to be huge so I can do proper work on it easily and not get frustrated. Camera. This has to be what I would call acceptable, as often I'll have a camera with me for shooting on, so it isn't as much of a concern for me as many others. However, lots of the shots I will use it for can be for professional reasons, so I want something that is above par. I would like the video to be pretty good too, as I often use shots from my phones in my work. So, I want a huge screen with never-ending battery, as fast as possible, and a pretty good camera. Everything else is just a bonus. After having such a good experience with Xiaomi, I decided that the early purchase price of £220 for the Poco X3 NFC had to be the best choice budget phone, as it's so amazingly well priced for having a big 6.7-inch screen with 120Hz refresh rate, along with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The battery is absolutely huge at 5000 milliamps, and paired with a slightly slower Snapdragon chip, this meant the phone would last for ages but still perform really well. It would even do a good job at gaming, and as the name suggests, it has NFC, which is rare for a budget phone. Then not long after, Xiaomi announced the release of the Mi 10T Lite, which ended up being nearly exactly the same phone as the Poco, but with a slightly faster chip and, more importantly, 5G. This was priced at $250 for the early buyers, and with these added features makes it definitely worth the extra cost if you want to be using 5G networks for streaming or tethering. This obviously has a slight impact on the longevity of the battery, but I still managed to use it quite solidly for nearly 2 days on one charge, and left it untouched for 4 days, and it went down by only 4%. In the end, I chose the Mi 10T for myself, and got the Poco X3 NFC for my parents, as they care far more about their phone battery lasting for hours and the large screen than anything else, while I'll need the faster 5G upload and download speeds for working and the faster chip. For this price, you really can't go wrong with either phone. Oh, and please subscribe to Beatnik TV.